Hey TB, this story takes place back in 2005 when I was living in San Francisco. Well, I'd recently caught the surfing bug, and whenever the waves were good, I was up before dawn to chase them. One morning, my friends, Kirk, Jay, and I, we woke up around 6 a.m., grabbed some coffee, and crossed the Golden Gate Bridge and headed north on Highway 1. At Stinson Beach, there's a quiet three-way stop where we rarely see anyone. As we slowed down, I noticed Kirk was staring at something. Curious, I turned and saw a woman standing right beside my door. I hadn't seen her approach. She wore dreadlocks, an oversized wool sweater, and a patch-covered dress. Pretty strange attire for that foggy, early morning in such a remote spot. Well, Kirk rolled down his window. "Everything okay? Do you need a ride?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "I'm going to Belinas. I've got a dentist appointment there. Could you give me a lift?" Well, without hesitation, Kirk told her to hop in. She slid into the back seat beside Jay and began talking as soon as we pulled away. About the winding road and how dangerous it was and how no one should ever walk it. She mentioned a pregnant girl who'd been killed at that very stretch between Stinson Beach and Belinas. That detail sent a chill down my spine. Well, by the time we reached the dentist office, a gravel lot surrounded by fog and early sunlight, she thanked us and stepped out. We circled around to get back on the highway, but when I looked in the rearview mirror, she was gone. There was no trace of her anywhere. At the beach, Jay acted distant. He didn't put on his wetsuit or even touch his board. He just sat there, quietly. On the way home, he barely said a word. A few days later, Kirk pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, did Jason tell you what he saw that morning when we picked up that hitchhiker?" When I asked Jay, he hesitated before whispering, "I saw a ghost." He said that he could see right through her, that she never moved, never changed expression. It wasn't until then he left that the full weight of what had happened hit him. Later, I searched online and I found an old article about that same stretch of road. Several pedestrian deaths, including a pregnant girl. It even mentioned rumors of a cover-up by local authorities. But when I tried to revisit the link the next day, it was gone. Maybe she just wanted someone to remember her. Or maybe she just wanted us to know that ghosts are real. Signed, Chris. Dear Biker, this story begins on a cool summer night in the city of Issaquah, Washington, back in 1989. I was a patrol sergeant on the night shift, overseeing a squad of 4 other officers. The night had been uneventful until approximately 3 a.m. when my partner, I'll just call him Officer John here, he and I responded to an alarm at a business located in an exclusive shopping area known as Gilman Village. Now, this area consists of older homes and buildings that were relocated near Issaquah Creek, all connected by a wooden walkway. Gilman Village is a popular shopping destination for both tourists and locals. As a police officer, I enjoyed walking through the complex during my night shifts for both the exercise and the opportunity to window shop at the many interesting stores there. Receiving alarms at various businesses throughout Gilman was common, and most of the time, they were really nothing. However, on this particular night, there was nothing ordinary about it. John and I arrived at the alarmed business, which was then called the Levi Coat Factory. We conducted an outer perimeter check of the building and found it secure. Dispatch made phone contact with the owner, who declined to respond and allowed us to check the interior of the building. After that, John and I returned to the parking lot on the northwest side of the complex, where we had parked our patrol units. We stood outside, conversing in the dimly lit parking lot, about 60 to 70 feet away from the buildings. The buildings were to my left and to John's right. That's when both of us noticed unusual movement near the eaves of one of the buildings. It appeared to be a ball of light, about the size of a cantaloupe, moving slowly from left to right along the area, just below the eaves of the building. Now this light was intensely bright, and we stared at it till it disappeared around the south side of the building. Goosebumps covering our arms, Officer John and I exchanged wide-eyed glances, each asking simultaneously, "Did you see that?" Now what we had seen was strange enough, but it was nothing compared to what we were about to witness. While we stood and discussed the earlier event, our attention was drawn once again to the northwest corner of that same building. But this time it was the lower corner. A perfect ball of intense light, approximately 1 foot off the ground, floated around the corner. This sphere was about 4 feet in diameter, and once again it was perfect. What left me speechless was what I saw within the sphere. It was a creature walking upright. Its arms swung back and forth, and its hands were turned with the fingers pointed toward the rear. As the sphere moved alongside of the building, it went behind some bushes that grew between the sphere and our location in the parking lot. The light was visible through the gaps in the bushes, clearly revealing that it was not being projected from any source. As I recall, at least 3 full minutes passed before either John or I could speak. To put it lightly, we were terrified by the unknown. And this event fundamentally changed the way I think about stories from others, claiming encounters with the supernatural. John and I never spoke about the incident again until 2010. Thanks for reading. Signed, Anonymous. Hey, Tattooed Biker. I served in the Army from 2007 till 2012, and I'm just a regular guy. A family, house, and steady normal life. I don't think of myself as strange, though my wife might argue otherwise. Recently, while listening to some of your videos, I remembered something from when I was about 7 years old. Something I'll never forget. That's the night 2 kids showed up at our front door, trying to convince my mom to let them in. They were around my age, but something was off. Their clothes looked outdated. Their speech was flat and without emotion, and I didn't recognize them, which was pretty odd because, well, I knew every kid within 3 blocks. I tried to get a better look, but my mom kept pushing me back. She said, "You need to go to your room, now," with a tremble in her voice. I ran with my brother down the hall, and from my room, I could just barely see the front door around the corner, but those kids were gone. And then I heard my parents arguing. My dad wanted to call the police, saying he didn't like the way those kids looked. My mom thought he was overreacting. "They're just children," she said. And that's when my dad shouted something that I'll never forget. "It's their eyes." My mom argued that they didn't have black eyes, but my dad, well, he wasn't having it. He's a big man, as tough as they come, even now in his 60s, and for him to sound afraid like that, well, it shook me. A sudden bang hit the window, followed by 3 or 4 very deliberate knocks. I started to pull the blinds, but before I could, my dad rushed in, shouting, "Don't let them in." He scooped up my brother and me and carried us into the bathroom, yelling through the door that he had defended his family and that he was armed and ready to do so. After a very tense few minutes, everything went quiet. My dad came back and told us we were going for ice cream, and we left the house without another word. Now, he's never talked about that night since, and every time I bring it up, he just shuts us down completely. This story is very real. I swear it. Signed, Ronnie. Hey TB. A while back, I worked as a courier, picking up medical specimens from hospitals. One morning, right after finishing a pickup, I was driving when I noticed a car coming from the opposite direction. Inside was a woman with curly, wet brown hair, gripping the steering wheel at 10 and 2. As we drew even with each other, her on my left, me on hers, well, something compelled me to look over. At that instant, everything seemed to slow down. There was suddenly someone else in her car, a woman who hadn't been there just a second ago. She had long, dark hair, pale white skin, and hollow eye sockets. My heart skipped. As we passed, I thought, what did I just see? I made a U-turn at the next light, determined to take another look. When I spotted her car again, the eerie passenger was still there, only now on the other side. Once again, time seemed to crawl, and the pale figure slowly turned toward the driver, but, well, it felt like she was staring straight at me. Her empty sockets were nothing but black holes, and when she opened her mouth, it was just a void. No tongue, no teeth, just seemingly endless darkness. It almost felt like she was trying to pull something out of me, like my very soul. And then just as suddenly, everything snapped back to normal speed. My car jerked, tires screeching as I swerved to avoid oncoming traffic. I still can't explain what I saw that day, but whatever it wasn't human. Signed, Regina. Dear Biker, I discovered your channel by accident while researching Bigfoot sightings in my area, specifically the upper Northeast. My friend and I recently experienced something strange in the Bella Plain State Forest that might fit that category. While we were hiking the East Creek Trail, both of us are part of a hiking club from outside of Philadelphia, and we like to explore new places whenever we can. As we made our way back towards the car, parked about 1.5 miles north, it was late afternoon, around 6:30 p.m., and it was unusually warm. And that part of the trail runs along a wooden boardwalk over a really swampy stretch, thick with brush. We had just paused to rest, and we commented on how eerily quiet it was. Well, not long after we started walking again, we heard a series of deep grunts coming from somewhere behind us. When we turned, a tree in the distance was shaking violently. It was hard to gauge its size, but it was big enough to see even from where we stood. And then just moments later, we heard a heavy crash from somewhere to the northwest. The grunts grew louder, and the crashing intensified, back and forth, like something large was moving through the woods, maybe challenging another creature. Well, we picked up the pace, practically speed walking under the weight of our packs, too afraid to run, but desperate to leave the area. After several tense minutes, the sounds finally faded, but we didn't relax until the car was in sight. On the drive home, we couldn't stop talking about what we had heard and seen. My friend was convinced that it had to be Bigfoot, especially because of the tree shaking and those guttural, almost human-like grunts. She's had her own possible encounter years ago while she was camping in the Poconos, so she's always been wary during our hikes. At our next hiking club meeting, we told the group about what happened, and to my surprise, several members shared strange experiences of their own. Noises, rock throws, and even sightings, most from forested areas not far from Bella Plain. That area of New Jersey is really strange. Until that day, I never gave much thought to those stories, but now, I'm not so sure. Have there been a lot of Bigfoot sightings in southern New Jersey? People always talk about the Jersey Devil, but maybe there's something else roaming those woods. Signed, Paula. Hey TB, I live in Southern California, just north of San Diego. Here's my story, and I'll try and keep it brief. In a house where I used to rent, I had a detached garage that I used as my shack. It was kind of my quiet spot. I had a workbench in there, radios, and a setup for assembling printed circuit boards. I spent countless hours out there, never experiencing anything unusual, until this one night. While I was soldering a circuit board, when I heard a crunching sound on the roof. Very heavy, deliberate footsteps. My first thought was that maybe the wind had shifted one of my antennas, or maybe an animal had climbed up there. But the sound was too heavy, too human. So I grabbed my big mag light and I stepped outside. The night was completely still. When I aimed the beam up at the roof, what I saw made my blood run cold. There was something standing up there. A tall black figure, easily over 6 feet, and its shape was human, but not quite. Its eyes glowed a deep, unnatural red as it stared back at me. For a split second, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone in a costume. Maybe a prank. But then, this thing moved. It smoothly turned to the left and walked toward the edge of the roof. And then without any hesitation at all, it just stepped off, landing back there with a heavy thud that I could feel through the ground. Well, I ran to the front of my garage, heart pounding, flashlight shaking in my hand, but there was nothing. No footprints, no sound, no movement, just eerie silence. I still can't explain what I saw that night, and I know what I think I saw, but nothing about it felt human. Thanks for reading. Signed, Alex.
He's got scars on his arms, flames on his chest, rides a steel horse, won't ever rest. Chasing whispers through the foggy pines, searching for truths that slip through time. Moonlight bends where he rolls, the shadows speak. They've got souls, inking shadows, leather and lore. He's knocking on the other world's door. Bigfoot's hollow, dog man's glare, men in black just vanishing there. Inking shadows, truth to find, paranormal trails in his mind.